Welcome to another important class of our IELTS program. Let me just put myself somewhere here. I hope you're having a nice day and great things from Istanbul. I hope you're feeling good and you're ready for this class. So this is the first video I'm going to record for you. This is a new lesson. This is a very, very important lesson. Something vital that you should know. Today we're going to talk about the art of paraphrasing and how we can paraphrase the object and what follows the verb. Actually, in the first stage of our learning English, as you remember, when we learn how to struct a sentence, how to make a sentence, we learned a sentence structure like subject, verb, object, and adverbial, and there little bit we learned that what actually follows a verb. So and now we know what follows a verb is an object. Either it's an object or an adverbial actually. So if the verb is transitive, then the object follows. If the verb is intransitive, then the adverbial follows. We learned this simple basic principle of sentence structure. So today we're going to focus on the IELTS, and we are going to learn completely how we can paraphrase sentences in IELTS Task 1. And we're going to check out some vocabulary, and we're going to check out some vocabulary as well. We're not going to focus on the vocabulary today. But when next class, we'll talk about line graph. When we learn how to proceed line graph, then I'm going to show you the pictures and I will explain it to you how you can state, which means you can write, use the change in the graph, which vocabulary you should use, and what is actually increase and decrease or steady line in IELTS Task 1. These things are very important, and next class is also important. But today we're focusing on the art of paraphrasing, as you can see in the screen. Today we'll talk about the art of paraphrasing. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to buy a microphone because I've been traveling for the last 3 days. That's why I don't have a microphone right now, but very soon I'll get a microphone and you'll hear my voice very clearly. So please pay attention, listen to each word I say, and listen to this video very carefully. And I highly recommend to you, to all of my students, to attentively listen to the videos consecutively, which means many times, more than 2 times maybe, just to understand better. But if there's some part that you don't understand, please, forward it back and listen to it again. Well, okay, let's start our lesson right now. As I said before, today we are going to talk about paraphrasing the object. It's indeed a very, very important, tip, as I may say, that we should learn. And then we're going to talk about verb complementation, which means what follows verb, what completes the verb. And within the class we have 2 parts. We have art of phrasing, which actually I sent you this material, but we haven't discussed this part of this material deeply so far. But today we definitely focus on this 2 and learn them all. And also the second part is paraphrasing the object, which is the main subject of today. But let's start with the art of paraphrasing. Actually, so far you have heard of paraphrasing, like what is paraphrasing, how we can paraphrase a sentence. And so far you know what's a paraphrase, and at least slightly you have slight knowledge of paraphrasing a sentence or a phrase. And yeah, listen carefully. Let's give it a overview for paraphrasing first again and then continue. Well, this is something that you can also use for the task 2 and for anywhere in English, also for your speaking. I mean, I told you long time ago that if you want to speak in a professional way, you should know how to write a better essay. You should know tips and skills of tricks of writing an essay. And it helps your brain to form a sentence. Learning a language is all about forming something in your mind. A language is something that you should, practice. A lot to learn something. So, okay. So, as I said before, this is a very important skill to develop when learning IELTS writing in terms of avoiding plagiarism. Plagiarism means copying the same. I mean, I told you before that you should not copy the same word. You should not write the same word second time. It's not a good thing in IELTS, either in task 1 or task 2. So now let's learn how to professionally paraphrase a passage, which means a text, a paragraph, or sentence. Here are the not 7, actually there were 7, I increased it into 4 rules of paraphrasing. And these are not about IELTS actually. This is just the general information, the general trends of paraphrasing. So first thing first, whatever you're paraphrasing, it's a sentence or passage or IELTS question, read the original original sentence a few times until you fully absorb the idea, which means that, so there's a question and don't read it once, read it 2-3 times until you understand the main idea of the question, because you will work on this main idea. You will either find synonyms, which we will actually discuss further, or change the form of the sentence in order to paraphrase. Again, we'll discuss that further too. And after you understand the main idea of the question or the sentence or the passage, try rearranging in different order. So actually the ways of the means, by the way, means ways, okay? The way of something, which means you can also say the means of something. This is more formal. Use this word. So try rearranging ideas in different order, which means try to use another means of the word. You can either change the object, you can either change the adjective, or let's say that adjective is the adverbial. I'm sorry, not adjective. Let's say you want to change the time adverbial or place adverbial. We'll discuss it in detail in a few minutes. So, if your paraphrasing work is a passage, it's not about IELTS. This one is definitely not about IELTS. It's just for your speaking and for general English, which means it includes couple sentences or a long one, which means 2-3 sentences. If you have 2-3 sentences, then it's better to take notes of the ideas. Like, let's say you have 4 sentences, and each sentence, there's the main idea of the sentence. Actually, the main idea of the sentence is mostly the nouns of the sentence. I remember I told you the noun is the meaning, is the idea of the sentence, are nouns in the sentence. I mean, is nouns in the sentence. We actually talked about this way before when we learned relative clause, by the way. And relative clause is another tool for paraphrasing a sentence, but I'm not going to talk about it because we already know how we can expand the sentence. Remember the lesson, expansion of the sentence? There, I taught you all how to use relative clause, P1 and P2. These are the best tools to paraphrase, also increase the size of your sentence. And after, you can take notes if you have you can take notes of each sentence and check your paraphrase with the original one. After you paraphrase that, check it with the original one. Match the ideas if they're the same, but not the structure. Structure should be different. The idea should be the same. This is the definition of paraphrasing. You should keep the idea, but change the structure of the sentence, right? It means like you have one final destination to go. The question is the one way. So what you have to do, you have to establish another way to get to that destination, which means the destination is the same, but the roads are different. So before starting on learning, embarking is a formal version of start. So in IELTS speaking or writing, you can use this word embark. It's a very nice vocabulary. Before embarking on learning IELTS paraphrasing, let's take a look at the following passage and study a few tips of how to paraphrase it. So let's check this passage or text. It says, of the more than 1,000 bicycling deaths each year, which means, you know what does it mean, right? I don't want to translate it into Aussie. 3/4 are caused by head injuries. Out of 1,000 bicycling deaths each year, 3/4 are caused by head injuries. Half of those, so the main idea of the sentence, they're talking about deaths, right? And the cause of the death. So you can use this note, since it's a long passage. You can say that the cause of the death is the head injuries, mainly, mostly. Why mostly? Because it says 3/4, which means mostly caused by head injuries. This is the idea of your sentence. Half of those killed here is a P2, past participle, öldürülmüş, onların ölmüş yarısı, are school-age children. Okay, it's a very simple sentence. One study concluded that, conclude, which means, you know, agreed or ended up or, you know, showed, actually you can say. One study concluded that wearing a bike helmet is, you know what is bike helmet, can reduce the risk of head injury by 85%. 85%. In an accident, a bike helmet absorbs the shock, which means, you know, blocks the shock, doesn't let the shock to your head, and cushions, which means yumuşatmak, the effect or the force, the head. So we understand that the passage is talking about the deaths of the riders of bikes like bicycles or bicycles, and the reason of it, and some statistics we have. Okay. Very easy. So right now what I did, I understood the passage. Now I want to change each sentences by looking at it again, using my own way of words or structure, right? So now let's apply the rules above. Make sure you read it multiple times to fully comprehend the idea of it. As you can see, I read it 1 or 2 times, so I can understand it. But if you don't understand what it says, read it again. Let's take some notes, since it's a long passage. So it says, not wearing a bike helmet causes fatal injuries, right? So you have to wear a bike helmet. Wearing a helmet means less chance to head injury. As you can see, it reduces the risk by 85%. Helmet cushions the head in case of a fall. We have this as well. It's just simple paraphrasing. I just changed the structure of it. This is not a detailed part of paraphrasing needed. This is just an overview. Okay, I did it for you, but I'll show you how to do it in detail in the following passages. And all of that caused by accident, 75% happened because of head injuries. These are my notes. I just changed the sentence. The meaning is the same. The information is the same. I just write it in my own way. And half of those deaths are children. Instead of saying half of those killed are school-age children, I'm just saying half of those deaths are children. And then I paraphrased it. So here how we paraphrase it. So it says helmets can help reduce potentially fatal, or fatal it can sound, biking accidents. Okay, that doesn't mean that I have to do it in an order that how it shows. But I'm just writing my own thoughts. I'm just explaining. This is actually something from TOEFL exam. You read the text and you write your own words, but you have to keep the meaning the same. It doesn't matter. In IELTS, it's supposed to follow the sentences, supposed to follow each other, but in TOEFL, it's not like that. In TOEFL, you can change the orders of the sentence, but you must explain the idea with your own words. So bike helmets can help reduce potentially fatal or fatal biking accidents. 3/4 of biking accidents are caused by head injuries, of which 50% involve children. I just use a relative clause. I told you it's a very nice way to use it. Helmet protects the head of a cyclist during an accident by reducing the impact on the head. This is another very nice way of joining two sentences to each other. I'm using P1 here, relative clause here, P1 here. So what I do, I combine two sentences to each other by using relative clause or P1 or P2. Based on one study, P2 here, the injury rate goes down dramatically, namely 85%. Namely here doesn't mean a name, which means mostly mainly, when riders wear helmets. So this is the same thing, right? Same idea with this. I just explained what I read in my own words. So I hope now you understand what is the paraphrasing. Actually, paraphrasing for speaking is this one. Like when you read something, when you see something, when you hear something, you want to say it again. So what you have to do, you have to understand the object, the subject. The passage first, and then you can either paraphrase it one by one. But when it's a long passage, you can't paraphrase it one by one. You have to understand the idea, and you have to form your own opinion around the idea and talk about it. We'll talk about this in detail when we shift to IELTS speaking. This is actually something for TOEFL speaking, but it's useful to understand how to paraphrase, only listening or reading and understanding the idea of the passage. So the sample of that we paraphrased was not an in-depth look into phrasing, as I said before. It was just an overview to create what is generally paraphrasing is. So let's take a close look at this question and try to learn tips for paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is helpful for introduction part of the essay, as well as making your sentences more creative. Now let's start what is paraphrasing and how we paraphrase a question in IELTS. But here we primarily focus on the task 1, work on the task 1 paraphrasing, but you can use the same thing for task 2. We'll go back to this in task 2 as well. Okay, so listen carefully. Let's take a look at this example. It says, obese people should eat less. Do you agree or disagree? You never, ever, in task 2 or task 1, paraphrase the question, this one. You always paraphrase the sentence, okay? This is a question card above, which we will work on. So paraphrasing means to change the sentence form by keeping the meaning and the main idea of the sentence. So there are actually many ways to paraphrase the sentence, but the best ways, like the best 3 general ways, is to use the passive voice of the verb and to find synonyms for words possibly can be found for that particular word, and changing the form of a phrase or replacing with your own words, or changing the structure. Changing the form means changing the structure. In order to change the structure, again, first thing first, you have to understand the question well. Second, you have to have good grammar to change the form of it. So let's check out this in detail one by one. Voice. Please check that passive voice file to recall what are the forms of passive voice and how we use passive voice and how in which tense forms we have in. Well, So yeah, please check that passive voice file. If you forget something about passive voice, check that passive voice file, especially the passive voice of infinitive. There was a lesson called passive voice of infinitive. Check that file too. That'll be hugely helpful for you to understand this passage. So in the previous month, we studied what's important about passive voice. What we need so as to convert a verb into a passive form, which means convert means change, a verb into a passive form from active form, is put to be before the verb and use the verb's third form, past participle form of the verb. For example, if you want to change the is active form of drink to passive, you have to add to be in front and use the third form of the verb, which is a past participle. To be drunk is bilməli. So when we convert a sentence into a passive form, we implement the following procedure. What is the procedure? So let's say that your question is, I eat cake, okay? And then you use the passive form and you say cake, a piece of cake. Mostly cake is not countable noun. That's why you can't use a cake, but you can use cake alone or with some other combinations, like a piece of cake is eaten by me. So this is the passive form. So replace the subject with the object. If you don't remember what is how we can change active form to passive form, replace subject with the object and put the verb in passive voice. Now let's take a look at our example question and put it into passive. So obese people should eat less. This is a question for ask to agree and disagree essay. So what I do here, I write this. I'm not using any synonyms. I explain this separately. I'll explain synonyms, I'll explain changing the verb form, and then I'll tell you the best way using all three, possibly, because it may be something that you may not be able to convert it into passive voice, or the question may be something that you may not find synonyms for each word or any word. But if you possibly can, then use all three forms to paraphrase your question: passive form, synonyms, and changing the form. Now we're talking about passive form, and further we'll explain synonyms and changing the form as well. So, obese people should eat less. Should not be eaten by obese people. So what I'm using here is, I'm just adding, from my point of view, from my understanding, I'm just adding a subject. Why? Here we don't have subject. We don't have object. That's why mainly when we convert passive voice into active voice, we put object, we bring object into the subject's place and we make it subject. But here we don't have object. That's why we're adding some subject from ourselves, like food shouldn't be eaten by obese people. It's just a creative touch to it, just to put, because when they are obese and when they eat fatty food, or much food, you can say, or just to make that understanding of just to fill the place of a subject in the sentence. So it shouldn't be eaten by obese people. There's no subject, but here we'll put the subject. In the change above, as you can see, there's no object in the active sentence. It means no subject in the passive sentence. This time, all you need to do is just adding subject to your sentence. The fatty food and much food, you can say, not the article doesn't belong to this one. The article belongs to this one. Much food shouldn't be eaten by obese people. In fact, you can change the sentence from however you want by not changing its definition. Okay? Keep the definition and you can change it however you want. Easy breezy breezy. This is all about passive voice, and since we have already studied passive voice, and we're not going to talk about passive voice a lot. This is enough for you. You understand what I'm saying. Now let's talk about the synonyms. Well, synonyms is a bit longer, so please listen to it carefully. Using synonyms while paraphrasing means replacing each word with words that are similar to that particular word. Replacing each word with their synonyms is another way of paraphrasing. For example, here in that example above, obese are the word obese is equal, which means extremely fat. And in order to find how to use synonyms for how to find synonyms, or the main point here, if you don't know the synonym of adjective, you can just write the explanation of it. Or if you don't know the synonym of any noun or any verb, just write the definition of that verb. For example, let's say you don't know the synonym of obese, but you know that obese means extremely fat, right? If you don't know a synonym of a non-gradable adjective, just write its simple definition, as I've written here. For example, obese means extremely fat. Superb means hugely beautiful or humongously beautiful. So for this one, for adjectives, you can check out the file called non-gradable and gradable adjectives. You can check out that. So for paraphrasing, it's so important that you have a nice range of vocabulary, which means you have a good vocabulary, not the best vocabulary, but the good vocabulary, just to use these tips and tricks and get a higher score. Also, let's check out this sentence. Here I said, extremely fat individuals ought to consume to a lesser extent. So what I did here, I didn't use the passive form. It's all about synonyms here. I found the synonyms for many of the words in the sentence, and then I wrote a paraphrasing form of it. Extremely fat individuals, which means obese people. Extremely fat individuals, or you can say overweight individuals, or overweight individual, overweighted or overweight individuals ought to, it's a synonym of should, consume to a lesser extent. Eat is consume, less to a lesser extent. Wait, instead of saying much or less, you can use to a lesser extent, to a lesser degree, to a greater degree. You can use these things. Actually, I gave you the material. It's in the material of synonyms in the IELTS. We'll talk about that when we learn a line graph in detail. So as you see, what I did is just simple. I put some, if you don't know the synonym, you just have to be creative in Egypt. You just have to be creative. You just find a definition, or you just create something that means the same with the word. It's not hard. It's not a rocket science. You can do that. You can easily do that. But there are some important rules that you should obey when using synonyms, vocabulary in general. So use correct synonyms in your writing, which means you see the word obese, right? And let's say you know a synonym for that word, but you are not sure if that word exactly means the same with that one. May not be the same. So that's why make sure that you have the correct synonym. But if you don't have if you're not sure that is the right synonym, then just write the definition of that word, okay? Use a range of vocabulary. As I said before, you have to have a good range of vocabulary to easily work with your paraphrasing. So we'll work on the vocabulary as well in the writing task 2 and reading section. We'll work on the vocabulary. Here also we'll learn some vocabulary. Also, don't repeat words or phrases from the exam question unless there's no alternative. there are some questions in IELTS that you may not find the synonyms. Well, actually, we have one that sample question down below. I'll tell you. You may not find the synonyms. Then you don't need to paraphrase that. You don't need to. Then you use some other samples for that one. You can use paraphrase. You can use passive voice, or you can just change the form of the sentence. And we'll discuss both. Now we know how to use passive voice. But if you can't find the synonym for the word, there's no need to to use the synonym for that. Again, if you know the synonym, use the synonym. If you don't know the synonym, write the definition of the word. If you don't know either, if you don't know both of them, then keep it like that. Don't change it. Use the other forms of paraphrasing, passive voice or changing the form. Use less common vocabulary, which means that don't use very easy words in IELTS. Use less common vocabulary, like the words that rarely used. They actually give you a good score on the basis of your vocabulary as well, like, along with the grammar. Vocabulary plays an important role. So it's better that you learn all the vocabulary I give to you, which you'll see down below, to use them accurately and frequently in your IELTS writings. Same word more than once or twice. It's really advisable and recommended not to use the same word even twice. Okay, don't use it twice. If you don't have any other way, then use it twice. But if you do have another way, don't use it twice. Even in your body paragraph, if you have another way, another chance, another opportunity to use some synonyms, then use it. But if you don't have it, just keep it like that. Okay? And use precise and accurate words in a sentence, which means, okay, don't use more common vocabulary, less common vocabulary. Use less common vocabulary, but don't find the words that are taken from the book of Shakespeare. Okay, so write something that is not generally common, but also a good word for as per the formality. Well, here I wrote for you some vocabulary for description, for increase, for decrease, for general, for that overall part, for general trend, and it's really helpful to form your understanding of it helps you how to form your question, how to paraphrase your question in the right order. So these are the common things. Actually, we will talk about this in detail when we'll learn line graph, but in this class, please learn them all by heart. Check out what is a diagram, table, figure, illustration, graph, chart. Actually, I'll show you in pictures next class, next lesson. I'll show you things in pictures. What is an illustration? What is a chart? Actually, we know many of it. You may not know what's a column graph. I'll show you next time using the picture in my Word file. Pictorial and process diagram. Presentation is the same with diagram or table. Okay, flow chart. We'll discuss about this in future. So these are the synonyms. So mainly, it's advisable, it's recommended that do not change the name of the diagram. If it's table, then write the table shows. If it's figure, write the figure shows. If it's pie chart, then write the pie chart shows. I mean, until now, we know that bar chart, pie chart, and diagram don't change these words. Process diagram, the diagram above shows, illustrates, presents something. Line graph shows, presents, illustrates something. But if you want to be a little more creative, then you can say the presented line graph, the provided line graph. It's not advisable by many teachers, including me, but you can use it. You can use it, yeah, in order to keep more words for that, but you can use a presented illustration, presented process diagram. From my point of view, don't use these things. Use only the name. The diagram shows, the table shows, the line graph shows, whatever it says in the question card, use that word for presentation. And here we have multiple kinds of verbs. Don't use the same verb if, let's say, you're going to write 20 task 1 essays from now on. Don't use the same word in all your essays. Use shows in the first, use represents in the second, use depicts in the other one, enumerates, illustrates, presents, donates. There are a lot of them. And do not use the same verb in the question card. Verbs always have to be changed, paraphrased with their synonyms. Learn all these options, okay? All these options. I'm going to ask you. So, this is the subject, verb, and the object. For example, shows, the diagram shows the comparison of something, the differences between, the change, number of, information on, data on, proportion of. Things will be shown in the question card. Okay, if it's not shown in the question card, just look at the picture and find out it is an information. It's either a data, a number, or change, or differences, or comparison. So actually, as I said before, we'll talk all of this in the next class. I'll show you in pictures what is the comparison, what is the differences, and how can we define that there are differences, or if there are change, or if there's a trend of something. I'll tell you all this in the next class. But for now, these are the synonyms that we are learning. Learn the synonyms. Please learn the synonyms by heart and keep that in your mind forever. Whatever writing you write, just use this. And also use the vocabulary for task 1 and task 2. And here I wrote for you some sample sentences. The diagram shows employment rates among adults. Pie chart I did write for you, but you can just say pie chart. Does not mean that it's going to give you a higher score, but you can use given or something. Represent a proportion. Charts gives information about consumer. Just read these things, okay? Find out that what is how we can use them. Also, in the following section, I will tell you that how we use SVOA, sentence structure, to paraphrase our sentences in the best way. Okay? Here, just an example of these things. Learn these things and check out the examples. You don't need to learn anything from here. Just check out these examples and learn these things, because here are some things that we haven't studied yet. Okay? We have studied bar graph. We haven't studied line graph. We haven't learned there are some other things that we haven't learned from here. Just read things. And here are some important tips. As you know, for a single graph, if it says the line graph, then you should use, that, right? You should use S at the end of the word, like delineate, enumerate, because it's just one graph. But if there are multiple graphs, then don't use S, because the subject is in plural. If there are multiple graphs and each one presents a different type of data, you can write which graph presents what type of data and use while to show a connection. For example, the given bar shows the amount spent on food items in 2019 in the UK, while the pie chart, so there are two charts, you're connecting two charts each other using these conjunctions, while the pie chart presents a comparison of people's age who spent more on fast food. We're going to learn this while, whereas, different, they're very nice conjunctions for IELTS in part 2, in part 2, okay? Your introduction should be quite impressive, as it makes the first impression to the examiner. It either makes or breaks your overall score. That's why introduction to paraphrasing should be okay, should be impressive, should be clear to the examiner, so that they can understand what are you going to talk about in your body paragraphs. Okay, so for multiple graphs, okay, let me just tell you this. For multiple graphs, and or tables. You can write what they present in combination instead of saying which each graph depicts. What I mean is that the two pie charts and the column graph in combination together depicts the picture of crime in Australia from 2005. So I'll tell you this in detail again in line graph for the next classes of task 1. But just read this and keep it in that mind, right? So your introduction, general statement plus overall. General statement means the first sentence. Overall trend is an overall general, you know what's overall. It's a general trend. Should have 75, 80 words altogether, which means 1 or 2 sentences. It's better to keep it 2 sentences short. Okay. Okay, so here are some other vocabulary for general trend. Please learn the vocabularies. In general, instead of saying overall, you can also say in general, in common, generally speaking. At the first glance, it's clear. At the one set, it's clear that. A glance at the graphs reveals that. Overall, it's obvious, but you can just use overall all the time. It's the very, very best one. And overall is a very good word. Or in common or in general, you can use either one, but learn all of them in case that you may use one of them. And here are some examples for all of it. And check out these examples, read them all one by one, okay? And just know how to use them. Also, we have vocabulary for body part. This is also something that we will discuss in detail when we learn line graph. But for now, also check out these ones and learn them. Increase words, rise, increase, go up, uplift, soar, shut up, improve, move upward. Learn this word because you're going to use them separately. We will practice them separately. I'll show you how a line graph, there's a line, how that line rise or increase or go up or rocket up. Rocket up means like, so this is like a rise, but rocket up is like straight up to the higher level. I'll tell you this in pictures when we'll learn a line graph. Okay, and there are increase objects, decrease verbs, decrease objects, steadiness. Learn all of them. From now on, learn them since we're going to use them in the line graph. Also, we'll learn them in the line graph in detail. Here we have some other examples. And here we have some, vocabulary for graphs, rapid change or moderate change. And these are the adverbs and adjectives. Here we have verbs and objects. Here we have adverbs and adjectives. You can also use them. What happened? Okay. Well, now of this today's lesson. That's what we should learn today. Changing the form is the best way to paraphrase your question or your sentence. So how we do it and what we use it and what follows the word, as we said at the top of the lesson, this is the title of this class. How we can like change how we can paraphrase object. So changing the form is the best way to paraphrase your object. Okay, now let's learn what actually is going on when you change the object, how you can change the object. Changing the form generally means adding your own thoughts and words so that you can change the form of the sentence. Changing the form also means that you can build your own creative sentence by not changing the meaning of the idea. Let's say that there is one sentence. Okay, obese people should eat less, for example. And paraphrasing does not mean that, you have to find synonym for each word. You have to find use the passive word for the sentence. You have to do this and that. No. Paraphrasing means you can use either of them, and you can even separate this one sentence into 2 sentences. What must be there is the idea. You just have to show the examiner that you understand the question and you write the question, the idea, with your own words. And writing your own words, you need some vocabulary and you need some grammar, right? So just think and produce a sentence which is much detailed form of the idea. So this SVOA method is very good. Now check the example below. The diagram presents information on the percentages of teachers who have expressed their view. Check out this, who have expressed their views about the different problems they face when dealing with children in 3 Australian schools from 2000 to 2005. Okay, this is a paraphrase form of the question and what we do here. A question in text 1 is a sentence. In order to paraphrase better, find SVOA and paraphrase them separately. So let's check out this one. The diagram here is the subject, right? This is the subject. It's raining a lot here, man. Since I got here, it rains too much. Presents what? Information on the percentages of teachers who have expressed their views about the problems they face. This is all of it are an object. When dealing with children, it's a time adverbial. And in 3 schools, 3 Australian schools, there's another time adverbial from, oh no, not this one. From 2001 and 2002. By the way, your time adverbial includes a number, you can write that time adverbial after the place adverbial. Okay? Or so when dealing with children is another sentence. That's why we write this one before this place adverbial. So we have subject, verb, object, time adverbial, place adverbial, and another time adverbial. So as you can see, here we have presents the information on the percentages of teachers who have expressed their views about the different problems. So here we have 1, 2 relative clause. Teachers, we explain to teachers, we watch the diagram, and we want to say the teachers, we want to explain which teachers. And then we write who have expressed their views about the different problems. It is shown in the diagram. That's why I wrote this one here, they face. When dealing with children, we know, you remember a preposition with prepositions with ing, infinitive prepositions. Then we learned that when means on. When dealing with dealing with children, or when dealing with children, it means the same. Like time. When dealing with children in 3 Australian schools. Where in 3 Australian schools? From when? From 2001 to 2005. So what I'm trying to say is that in the question is simple. Find subject, verb, object, adverbial, and expand them according to the diagram, according to the information in the diagram. As you remember, we have learned how to expand our sentence, the expansion of the sentence. There we had the expansion, we had relative clause, 1, 2 relative clause we have here. We have a P1, we have P2, we have adjective, okay? So you can also use them. What I'm trying to say, find subject, verb, object, adverbial, and expand them simply according to the diagram, according to the information in the diagram. Don't write anything from yourself. Task 1, you cannot give your own opinion. You just have to watch the diagram, observe the information, and use the tips and tricks, put them in your writing essay. So what here is an object? You ask the question. The diagram presents. Okay, I know this vocabulary. I write that. Okay, the diagram illustrates. I write that illustrate. The graph illustrates. And then you start asking questions to yourself. That's the rule. Listen carefully. Illustrates what? And then I go back to diagram. I saw the title of the diagram. The title of the diagram says information on the percentages of teachers. Or even if it doesn't say, it shows that. So I write it as words. Okay, but which teachers? I saw the diagram. And in the diagram, it tells me the teachers express their views about the different problems they face, and I combine it with relative clause to the teachers. Next question is when? Where? 3 Australian schools, this when dealing with children, belong to this object. It's not time adverbial of the sentences, it's the time adverbial of the object, of the relative clause in the object. So who have expressed their views about the problems they face when dealing with children. So relative clause also have subject, verb, object, adverbial, as we studied before. Who is the subject? Have expressed is the verb. Their views about the different problems they face is an object. Here we have another relative clause. When dealing with the children. Where? 3 Australian schools. When? From 2001 and 2005. As you can see, the biggest portion of the question is the object, right? So as you can see, the object, we have the question what presents what. Then here down below, we will learn how to answer, like what comes after the verb, and as an answer to the question what. So presents information on the percentages of teachers who have expressed their views about the different problems they face when dealing with children. So actually, I will have to show you the picture of this diagram. I'll find that one. I'll show you that one. Okay, I'll show you how it works. So as you can see, the questions present what, where, when, how. Check out that if you have that answer, those answers in your question. If you don't have it, it's okay. You can just write object and time adverbial. But if you have the place adverbial, you have to write the place adverbial as an another form of paraphrasing. You can use this simple method as well. But everything depends on the object, because the object is the idea of the sentence in all English sentences. Object is the idea of the sentence. The clearer you explain the object to the examiner will give you more score. And where you can get the clear information about the object? From the diagram. The diagram, the table, the line graph, everything that each question that you have in task 1 shows you what you should get from the picture, and everything you need is in the picture. To find the object and paraphrase it and write it in a long and explain it, just look at the picture. Now, phrasing the object 1 is finished. Now we have learned the art of paraphrasing. We have looked at different forms. And now we know the art of paraphrasing. What is the paraphrasing and how we can paraphrase our sentences in the rightest way. And now we are going to look at part 2, paraphrasing the object. I want to take a little rest, but I'm not going to take a little rest because nothing more left. Let's finish this out. So paraphrasing the object, it's very important. This is something about this. So let's see what comes after a verb and actually how to paraphrase the object in 3 sample questions. Verb complementation. The initial stage of learning English start with the sentence structure. We said before, when we studied the structure of a sentence, we learned that verb plays the most important role in creating a sentence. The rest of the sentence after subject and verb depends upon the verb. Therefore, knowing what might follow a verb in a sentence is definitely a useful tool on paraphrasing it as well. So let's learn what follows the verb. Mainly after a verb, the following things can be used. We name them objects. Now let's learn the different form of objects and how we can exchange these objects as a tool of paraphrasing. So, verb simply we know that a noun and a pronoun follows. Really enjoyed the evening. The evening here is the object, right? Just a simple object. There's no verb after verb. You may not need an object. Paula smiled and left. There's no object. Verb plus two objects. They gave us coffee. Us is called direct object. Person object. Remember person object and think object. In English, formally it's called direct objects and indirect objects. Like person objects are called direct. Think objects are called indirect objects. And there is actually a rule that if you use indirect object first, then you have to put two in front of the person object, direct object. And the verb, this is what we need. VH clause. I can't believe what he told me. The diagram shows how still roads are processed, are made. The diagram shows the process of making still roads. The diagram shows how to process make still roads in the factory. Now this is what we're going to talk about soon. Afterward, we use that clause. These two are the important ones. So as we know that some verbs, often called transitive verbs, need an object to complete their meaning. Some verbs, often called intransitive verbs, don't take an object. Some verbs need both a direct object or indirect object. Some verbs can take a VH clause, like this, what he told me, or clause as an object. Many phrasal verbs take an object. So we won't give out your email address to other companies. They've put the price of fuel again up for you. As you can see, they're just simple objects here. We use all prepositional verbs taken out after the preposition. I don't listen to the radio. We have learned all this before. No objects with linking verbs. Also, we have linking verbs. You know that we don't use objects with the linking verbs. Now, the last portion of our lesson. So, I have written 3 sample questions here. The diagram below shows possible future means of home energy production. We have studied this before. The diagram One second. The diagrams below give information about the manufacture of frozen fish pies. Okay. And the diagram illustrates how still roads are manufactured in the furniture industry. So let's check out how we can paraphrase them using all these tips and tricks above. And I write the paraphrasing version as well. I'm going to write 3 of them and I'll show you how to use them. So let's check out the first one. The diagram below shows a possible future means of home energy production. Again, you read the question again, to understand the main idea better. The diagram below shows what shows? A possible future means of home energy production. Okay, it means that the following diagram illustrates for a process, there's a process for making electricity for houses. So this is one way of paraphrasing. So right now what I should do here in order to paraphrase better, in order to paraphrase better, to separate them into subject, verb, and object, right? The diagram is the subject. Is this the first one? The diagram is subject. Shows is the verb. You don't need below. Shows what? A possible future means of home energy production. And the object. We don't have adverbial here. We do not have adverbial here. We do not have time, place, adverbial here. We just have subject, verb, and object. So what we have to paraphrase here is the object. Now let's paraphrase the object using VH clause, using simple noun phrase, or using other forms of ing, using other forms of verbs like ing form. The diagram shows. Diagram illustrates using one of the verbs from the verbs above, from the vocabulary of the verbs above. Illustrate. Illustrate what? So this is my subject and verb. So this is the verb, illustrates. Illustrate what? Illustrate a process. So a possible future means of home energy production. So here is a process. It's a diagram. It shows a process, right? So what I'm doing, I'm writing the diagram illustrates a process for what? Possible future means of home energy production. I found the noun phrase, the verb, and I convert it into a verb. Noun into a verb. Production, noun form of producing. What I do all the time. When you have a long phrase, object, find the verb form, the verb, the noun phrase of a verb, and then use the verb form with ing. This is called ing form of object, okay? And then phrase it. So illustrate a process for what? For producing electricity. I change home energy with electricity for home use. As I said before, means is a synonym of use or way. Okay? For home use, that's it. Possible future means, and also there also is the future process for producing electricity for home use in the future. That's how you do it with ing. You just have to write the ing process for producing electricity and write the synonym electricity. For home use, I keep it the same. I just change the form. And future, I just put in the future. That's it. Also, let's think that if we can write it with VH clause. Okay. Yes, we can write VH clause. Check this out. The diagram. VH clause mostly in process diagrams. We use how. Okay, as a VH clause. VH clause means what, where, how. These are questions. The VH clause means these things, these conjunctions, what, that, which, where. These are the conjunctions of VH clause, which means VH sentence. So we use how mainly for the diagram depicts, again I find the verb, how to produce electricity. Okay, how to produce future use of home electricity. How to produce future use of home electricity. Possible future use of home electricity. Home energy production. Again, home electricity. Produce future use of home electricity, or a process for producing electricity for. You can use them both. So If there is not, so what we used here, we used ing form, VH clause. Let's check if we can use the clause as well. Here we said we can use multiple things from as an object of the verb, and we said that VH clause and that clause are the main ones. So let's see if we can use a that clause for this case. So the diagram below shows the possible future means of home energy production. The diagram presents, you can always change, paraphrase the verb. Keep that in mind. The diagram presents, we should have a that there, presents that that the means of producing electricity for house use. Okay. In the future, possibly, potentially, producing, potentially, I'm writing potentially instead of producing, that the means of potentially producing electricity for home use. That's using the clause. Now let's check out this second sentence. Here we have let's check out this one. The diagram shows that there are a number of processes involved in the commercial production of frozen fish pies. This is the question that I give for you as a homework. Okay. And no, this is a paraphrase. The diagram below give information about the manufacture of frozen fish pies. Again, we have the subject and the verb. Information about the manufacture, again, and the object. That before the object is the main thing. To paraphrase, information about the manufacture of frozen fish pies. Actually, when you find the object, I mean, in your sample, essays, when you find the object, just extract that object out of the sentence and write different multiple options of paraphrased options for that one, and use one, pick out one and include it in a sentence and then write it up. Like, that's what I'm saying. So for example here, information about manufacture frozen fish pies. Right? Now, here are some examples for that. So here we have that clause. That there are a number of processes involved in commercial production of frozen fish pies. Information about the manufacture of frozen fish pies. Commercial production of frozen fish pies. Manufacture means it's made for sale, right? That's why I choose to write commercial production. That there are a number of processes involved in the commercial production of frozen fish pies. This is the same to that. And what else we can use information about the manufacture of frozen fish pie? We can use this. Data. Okay. Simple. Okay, the data on fabricating, fabrication. Fabrication is also means manufacture. Fabrication of pies belong to frozen fish. Belong to doesn't sound good. Made out of frozen fish. We can do this. Made on fabrication of pies made out of frozen fish. That's how I can do that too. So in order to do that, again, you have to have a little bit of a good vocabulary. That's enough for you to do the rest. And that's how I did this one as well. This actually we've studied together. You don't need to change the word diagram or table or something. It explains it can be changed all the time. The way. Also, you can use the verbs, the way, the use, the means. Okay, you can use this thing. So we can actually paraphrase the object using the ing form. We clause. If you have an ing form, you must have the noun form of the verb. We clause. If again, you must have the noun form of verb. For this one, also you need a verb. That clause. And you can also say if there is not, the thing is not, this word is not in the question, the way, the means, the use. For example, here we have the means in the first, the means of energy. So you can say the way. So if you don't have it, use the way, the means, the use, in which still verbs we have relative clause are produced. Object paraphrasing with the way. For furniture, the furniture industry, I keep it the same. I don't need to paraphrase everything. What must be paraphrased in task 1 question is the object. And this needs to belong to all the writings, all English. And you can use these tips and tricks to paraphrase your sentences, even in speaking, even in writing task 2. Even if you're taking TOEFL exam, you can also paraphrase that. Well, that is the end of today's class. It's a very important lesson. I hope you understand that, and we will work on these things more in the future, but try to listen to today's video and understand it and learn the things that I want you to learn. Learn especially the latest things. Learn how to do it. I'll send you some sentences to paraphrase as well. You will paraphrase your sentences according to these rules at home. And make sure that you're having fun doing it. Have a great day and work on your classes. Do not skip classes. Join the classes on time. I'll see you soon. If you have any question, write down your question to ask me. And we'll see the rest. Have a good day.